Welcome back to Tony's Teaching Tips. Today's topic is the 7 deadly sins of presentations. I'm Tony Sindelar, a higher education instructional designer with many years of experience partnering with faculty and subject matter experts to create and improve teaching and learning. Whether you're presenting a lecture as part of a course, teaching a 1-hour workshop, or giving a 15 update as part of a longer meeting, we do a lot of presenting in higher education. As an instructional designer, I spend a lot of time working with faculty to help them refine those presentations and make better use of presentation technologies like PowerPoint, Keynote, or Google Slides. This video is the first in a series of making better presentations, and I like to start off all of my conversations with faculty who are about to undertake a new presentation with thinking about some of the best and worst presentations that they've ever sat through, and specifically, what aspects of those presentations made them so memorable. Maybe you'd like to pause the video right now and jot down some ideas, some thoughts about your own best and worst presentations that you've experienced as an audience member. You're back. So we can talk broadly about good presentations being interesting and bad presentations being boring. But let's look at some of the things that people do in presentations that push them into those extreme good or bad situations. In asking this question over the years, there have been some clear trends in terms of what good presenters do and what bad presenters do. Audience members have been very quick to share with me some of the worst presentation stories in terms of things they've had to sit through. I've collected those ideas and boiled them down into what I'm calling the 7 deadly sins of presentations. Number 1 on the 7 deadly sins of presentations, text you can't read. Sadly, I haven't been to a conference yet where there wasn't at least one presentation where the speaker apologized that the text was so small it likely wouldn't be readable. Don't apologize, simply don't do it. Make that text big and easily readable so that people in the back row aren't missing out. Small text is the big culprit here. People are putting just way too much text on one slide, but low contrast text and background colors also contribute to this. Make your text big, make it easily readable. Think of PowerPoint as a billboard, not as a document. Number 2 on the 7 deadly sins of presentations, no interactivity. There are many ways we can communicate information in today's world. We've all been in meetings that could have been an email. A presentation, whether you're holding it in person or virtually, is an opportunity for an audience to engage with a presenter. Depending on the format, you may wish to have questions and discussions throughout or save till the end, but if there's no interactivity between you and the people you're presenting for, there probably didn't need to be a presentation. Rather than just hoping for questions at the end, considering having questions that you pose to the audience or that you use as discussion points for them. Plan ahead. Number 3, bad time management. Presentations that don't recognize the time constraints they need to fit in simply aren't going to be effective. If your listeners are looking at their phones and watches, shuffling stuff on their desk, worried about making that next meeting, class, or Zoom call, they aren't paying attention to you, and so your presentation isn't going to be effective. If you are in a context where you regularly present to the same group, set expectations early that your presentations start on time and end on time. And if you're brought in as a guest speaker in a space, make sure to honor the space and time that you were allotted. If you have a similar presentation that you're giving to different groups in different places and different time slots, be prepared to customize that presentation, tailor it to different time slots. Have a different version of your slides for when you're talking for 15 minutes versus 30 versus hour long. Don't just use the same slides and talk faster or start skipping slides as you run low on time. That looks disorganized and it's not going to be a good experience for your audience. The key here is know your slides, have practiced how long it takes to give the presentation you need to give, and respect the time constraints of your audience. Number 4, visual monotony. When all the slides look the same, your presentation starts to feel boring. It becomes hard for the audience to focus. Sometimes it even becomes hard for them to stay awake. Dense, text-heavy slides are a major culprit here, and it can be difficult to avoid this in fields that are particularly text-heavy. But always, 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 when you're working on your presentations, look for places where you can mix up the design and style of your slides and look for appropriate opportunities to use a chart, a diagram, or some other kind of visual to communicate ideas in a memorable way. You don't want your slides to all feel the same. Try looking at your presentation in a slide sort of view to get a sense of how it all fits together and what it's going to feel like to the audience. Number 5, big one, not knowing your audience. If you're going to be successful in communicating your ideas, you have to know who your audience is. You have to have some sense of who they are, what they are trying to accomplish in their life or career, and why the ideas that you are going to share with them are going to be relevant to them and contribute to that goal that they have. If you're an expert on a topic, you may be called in to present on that to a range of different audiences that have different levels of comfort with that topic. And a key part of being an expert presenter is customizing your message to who your audience is. A key part of this is the language and terminology you use. You have to tailor the message of your presentation and slides to the audience. Pay careful attention to what jargon you use, especially acronyms, and take the time to define terms that your audience is less likely to be familiar with. At the same time, if your audience is experts who speak the language, talking down to them may cause them to disengage and tune out. So whether you're planning a new presentation or customizing an existing one, take that time to find out who your audience is and what do they know, what do they not know, how is your presentation going to help them. If you don't have easy access to your population of who your audience is right now, whoever is recruiting you to give that presentation might be an important person to talk to and bounce these questions off of. Know your audience if you want to be successful. Number 6, confusing or irrelevant imagery. Many people attempt to make their presentations fun and memorable by adding photos, animated text, and other visuals. You're trying to avoid that number 4 sin of visual monotony, but the problem is adding the confusing or irrelevant images distracts from the message you communicate. You're getting in your own way. The right image can be a powerful tool to communicate a concept or idea, but don't just use images for the sake of fun, decorative ideas. Be really careful with using images as metaphors as well. The key here is to use images in ways that support your message and don't get in the way of it. Our 7th and final deadly sin of presentation design, you probably guessed it as the last one left, the most common complaint I hear again and again, reading the slides. Your audience is literate. They don't need you to read the slides to them, yet somehow this has become a standard presentation style. Your slides should be a jumping off point for what you're presenting and talking about, never a script. I think a big part of how we ended up here is people who think of their slides as speaker's notes, but they're not your notes. There's literally a whole other place in every slide software to put in what your notes are. Slides aren't your notes. They're not a transcript of what you're going to say. They're a visual accompaniment to the words that you're going to share with your audience. This is the number 1 habit that you have to break, and maybe you're already good about that, but we all slip up now and again and end up reading slides at audiences. Just don't do it. Now, good presentations are more than just don't do these 7 bad things. And in my follow-up video, I'll talk about how to plan and think about the design of your slides. But if any of these 7 habits are something you may have been recently guilty of, now is the time to break the habit and do better. Stay tuned for my next presentation on planning presentations, or check out the other videos and writings on Tony'sTeachingTips.com. I've been Tony Sindelar. Bye.